With a more intense gaze, she asks Valir to be honest with her. She wants to know where he got those scrolls because she recognizes them as magic constructs that are only used by demons. Her voice grows more stern as she presses him again, demanding to know how he acquired those scrolls. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Valir feels a chill run down his spine. He knows he's in trouble now. Even though Valir understood that magic exists in this world, he never took the time to learn how it works, or the differences between types of magic. He didn't know if a spell was human magic or demon magic. As he stood there, he realized that this must be the reason why the merchants had dismissed his scrolls as fake. They either weren't mages themselves, or simply didn't know enough about magic to recognize them. However, the red-haired lady was different. She seemed to see through him immediately, her serious demeanor telling him she knew exactly what the scrolls were. She pressed him for the truth, demanding to know how he had gotten them. In a moment of panic, Valir tried to use his status window to make her forget the whole thing. But he quickly realized that he needed 3,000 achievement points to do so, a number he didn't have. With no other choice, he reluctantly decided to tell her the truth. He explained that he had obtained the scrolls from the Demon King's castle, fully aware that this admission would have serious consequences. The lady, however, doesn't believe him right away. Valir then explains that he had obtained the scrolls when he tried to save the princess back in the Demon King's castle. After hearing this, the lady seems to soften a little, appearing slightly convinced by his story. Her demeanor shifts, and to Valir's surprise, she even gives him a hug. While the gesture might have been meant to comfort him, Valir feels uncomfortable, especially since he's still hungry, and she won't let him leave just yet. She then suggests that someone might have placed a curse on him while he was in the Demon King's castle, offering to help lift it. Valir tries to stop her, not wanting any more complications, but before he can protest further, she has already cast a dispel spell on him. The magic works instantly, and Valir is forced to revert back to his original demon form. Now in an even more awkward situation, Valir attempts to explain himself, but before he can finish, the lady suddenly drops to her knees and greets him properly. She refers to him as the Demon King's son, which shocks him. He's taken aback by her recognition, and as he looks at her closely, he realizes she is a vampire, her fangs clearly visible. Yet, despite this, he doesn't remember ever meeting her before. She asks him if he remembers her, but Valir is still trying to process everything that's happening. Alaris, realizing that they needed to avoid attracting attention, suggests they move quickly and heads upstairs to her room. Valir follows, still processing everything that's happened so far. Once inside, she offers him food, which he gratefully accepts, his hunger finally being addressed. As he eats, Alaris observes him carefully and learns that he only remembers his identity, but nothing else about his past. She introduces herself properly as Alaris the Flames, a member of the Gradium Infiltration Squad. Valir doesn't recall encountering any characters like that in his novel, but he doesn't question it. Instead, his curiosity takes over, and he asks her why she, a vampire, lives in a sunny house frequently visited by humans. Alaris explains, somewhat matter-of-factly, that she had no choice. Living in a house with a storefront was the only way she could afford the rent. She then continues to explain more about the other members of the Gradium Infiltration Squad. One of them is Sarkagar, a dread fiend who uses the false name of Count Argon Pontius. The other is a lycanthrope known as the Hound of Irene, who operates from a base in the Bronze Gate area near the Irene River. Alaris explains that it was Sarkagar, the dread fiend, who had kidnapped the human princess. His ability to shift faces and transform made him exceptionally skilled at blending into human society, allowing him to carry out such tasks unnoticed. As for the Hound of Irene, Alaris explains that he is the leader of one of the most notorious gangs in Gradium. The gang is quite large and influential, providing substantial financial support for the infiltration squad, helping to cover all their operational expenses. Despite all this, Alaris expresses relief and gratitude that Valir is safe. She believes that with him, they can rebuild the demon realm. However, Valir quickly cuts in, making it clear that he has no interest in rebuilding the demon realm. He argues that such an effort would only lead to another war between realms, and the last war was terrible enough. He doesn't want to go through that again. Additionally, he points out that gathering demons together in the current situation could very well get them all killed. Alaris tries to explain to Valir that, as the prince, it is expected of him to want to rebuild the demon realm. However, Valir firmly refuses, telling her that he doesn't want to be the king of a kingdom that no longer exists. He also reminds her that she too is no longer bound to serve a non-existent kingdom. Her expression darkens as she absorbs his words, and after a quiet moment, she walks away, clearly depressed. Before leaving, she tells him to get some rest. Later that night, Valir, still curious, asks Alaris what he used to be like before all of this. Alaris, nervous and hesitant, tells him that he was once an inspiring role model to all demons. Her tone is uneasy, and Valir senses that his past self wasn't as kind or heroic as he might have hoped. He doesn't dwell on it, choosing instead to focus on the present. He adds that tomorrow they will need to meet the rest of the infiltration squad to which they shared the bed. That Valir felt nice being in this character for once. The next morning, Alleris and Valir step out onto the streets, heading toward the meeting place for the rest of the Gradium infiltration squad. The capital, still basking in the aftermath of the battle, is alive with celebration. People are shouting and cheering in the streets, marking the safe return of the princess. The war has finally come to an end, and the people of the city are taking to the streets in joy, thankful that the long conflict is over. As they pass through the jubilant crowd, Valir and Alleris make their way toward the Mana train, which is stationed in the Aligar district. The Mana train, something Valir had originally included in his novel for convenience, offers them a comfortable ride. Valir and Alleris arrive at the area beneath the Bronze Gate Bridge, a place Valir recognizes from his novel as a spot where beggars often gather. But Alleris doesn't seem surprised by the condition of the place. She knows that this is where they are meeting the leader of the beggars. Alleris calmly tells Valir that they will be passing through a sewer pipe nearby to reach their destination. As they make their way through the area, Valir begins to feel uneasy, sensing something odd about the place. Just then, a woman steps out from the shadows, and she immediately calls out to Alleris, as though she's been expecting her. Valir is startled by the woman's appearance. Her sharp gaze and confident posture give her a commanding presence, making Valir instinctively uneasy. However, the woman greets Valir as well, and after a brief moment, she introduces herself as Loyar, a member of the Gradium infiltration squad. Since Alleris already knows her, there's a sense of familiarity between the two. Valir is shocked that the leader of this place is a lady. He didn't expect someone so powerful to be a woman in such a rough, neglected area. The lady asks Alleris about Sarkagir, and Alleris responds that he isn't there yet. She guesses he's likely busy with his noble duties, but assures her that he will be there soon. However, Alleris decides to share something with the lady, Loyar. She tells her that Valir doesn't remember anything except who he was. Loyar looks at Valir, stunned by this revelation, and asks him for confirmation. Valir nods, agreeing that he has no recollection of anything beyond his identity. Loyar reacts with a mix of relief and surprise. She is happy about this memory loss, as she knows how Valir used to treat her poorly in the past. She hopes that, without his memories, he won't be able to mistreat her in the same way. Valir doesn't realize that his past behavior was so harsh, and he sincerely apologizes to Loyar, hoping they can start working things out from this point forward. He extends his hand for a handshake, and Loyar hesitantly takes it, but to her surprise, Valir playfully tickles her instead. Loyar gets angry and demands to know why he would do that, but Valir doesn't expect her reaction to be so intense. He quickly apologizes. Before they can move on, a loud noise interrupts them. Suddenly Sarkagir appears, too clumsy in his excitement. He rushes over and hugs Valir so tightly that Valir struggles to breathe. Sarkagir continues holding him, begging Valir for something, but Valir, gasping for air, asks him to let go. When Sarkagir doesn't, Valir calls Alleris over for help. Alleris explains that Sarkagir is the one who served the Demon King with unwavering loyalty, to the point that he would sacrifice his own soul if it meant rebuilding the demon realm. Later, with Loyar's help, who had to pull Sarkagir's hair, they all gather around the light they make to keep warm while they discuss. Sarkagir insists that Valir must go and rebuild the demon realm, stating that he must avenge his father and build a greater empire there. But Loyar angrily cautions him about the words he's spouting out. Valir then assumes that even if they rebuild the demon realm, he still considers himself useless. Sarkagir, however, assures him that he is not, that he is a high and pure archdemon before whom all demons bow. Yet Valir remains unconvinced, questioning Sarkagir about what he means by archdemon. Everyone is shocked at his question at first, but then Sarkagir begins to explain. He tells Valir that an archdemon is the greatest of demons because in the Dark Land, the realm they live in, a harsh and ruthless place drenched in blood, strength, and unity are essential. However, he explains that the demons once nearly killed themselves to extinction, simply because they belonged to different races. One day, though, a powerful demon intervened, controlling the minds of others to end the fighting. He restored unity among the demons in the Dark Land, and from then on, the demons called him the Archdemon. He became known as the progenitor of the Demon Kings. At that moment, Valir finally understands what they mean. He asks about their plan, and Sarkagir replies that Valir must first become stronger, return to the demon realm to reunite the scattered demons, and gather his strength. But Valir disagrees with this plan, knowing they're at the Empire's capital, the heart of the enemy. Instead, he proposes staying there at the Bronze Gate to learn the culture and customs of their enemies, intending to uncover their weaknesses. Sarkagir eventually agrees, then proposes another idea. Valir could enroll in the temple, the Empire's academic institute. Although Valir is reluctant, Loyar sides with Sarkagir this time. Valir, however, is still against the idea, secretly hoping Alleris will rescue him. But to his dismay, Alaris also agrees. Seeing he has no other choice, Valir quickly voices his concern, arguing that it's too risky. He worries his cover could be blown, making it impossible to predict what would happen next. In response, Sarkagir produces a ring and places it on Valir's index finger, explaining that it has been passed down through generations of dreadfiends. He tells Valir that it will help him transform into any form he wishes. Sarkagir also reminds him that the glory of the Demon Empire will soon be theirs. Since they decide that Valir will study at the temple, they initially consider using one of Alaris or Sarkagir's fake identities for his enrollment. However, they quickly rule this out, knowing the humans might investigate Charlotte's captor. Loyar then introduces her henchman, Daiben, as an alternative. Together, they create a new identity for Valir, Reinhardt. With the Dreadfiend ring to alter his appearance, Valir would enroll in the temple under this disguise. Loyar instructs Daiben to take Valir out the next day to get a new identification card. When Valir asks how they plan to cover the tuition fees, everyone falls silent, realizing they hadn't considered that detail. They begin to brainstorm. Daiben reminds Loyar that they absolutely can't cover the temple's tuition fees with their current earnings. Loyar seems to have forgotten that even if they begged on the streets, they would never afford the tuition for the temple. The temple, known as Garcia's Temple, is the most prestigious academic institution on the continent. It's where the young nobles from the most influential families come to study and socialize. The annual tuition fee is around 100 million won, a fortune they clearly can't manage. Still, Loyar is somewhat hopeful that they might scrape together the amount. Daiben then suggests that if she's serious, she could consider making it possible by reducing the amount she takes from the club funds. Valir is taken aback when he hears about a club. He thought they only sold packs of guns, so he becomes curious about their business. Loyar, however, is unwilling to reduce her take from the funds, knowing that it would put their business at risk. But Daiben insists that it's their only option. Valir then suggests a plan. He only needs the first semester's tuition fee. He explains that he could earn a scholarship as the Empire is searching for future warriors to replace those who have fallen. If he proves his potential, he might be exempted from paying any fees. He's aware that the temple waives tuition for exceptionally talented individuals, and although he might be a low-level demon king, he's still an archdemon. Confident he'll find his talent once he's there, he decides that, if needed, he can use achievement points to unlock a talent. Loyar, impressed by his confidence, agrees to the plan. Daiben, however, notes that they still don't have enough to cover even that one semester. Valir, observing this, suggests they change tactics and start reaching out to customers directly if they aren't coming to them. He proposes a new idea, seeking customers along the Mana Train route, a place with high loot traffic and a quick escape route in case things go wrong. Valir suggests they could sell toys on the train, not even high-quality ones, as parents would likely buy them just to keep their kids from screaming. Daiben immediately agrees, but Loyar becomes angry that Daiben let Valir overhear the plan. Grateful to Valir for the idea, Daiben introduces him to the other gang members, and in celebration, they start pouring drinks. Valir takes this chance to ask about the club Daiben mentioned earlier, and Daiben explains that it's their own organization. As it turns out, Loyar had formed one of the largest gangs in the capital. Their income mainly comes from begging on the streets, and somehow it covers the expenses of the infiltration squad, the magic item shop, a noble lifestyle, and the gang's living costs. Valir begins to suspect Loyar might be hiding something from him. Unaware of this suspicion, Daiben continues explaining how they got their club name, the Rotary Club. Valir quietly resolves to find out what Loyar might be concealing. But just then, Loyar appears, furious that Daiben is giving Valir alcohol. She drags Valir off to the interrogation chamber, ignoring his pleas for help. Daiben, intimidated, stands by helplessly. When they reach the interrogation chamber, Loyar warns Valir to avoid alcohol, but Valir sees this as the perfect chance to ask about her other income sources. He points out that begging on the streets alone couldn't possibly cover the temple's tuition or even the infiltration squad's expenses. Loyar is momentarily speechless, surprised by his question. Eventually, she explains that she didn't intentionally hide it from him. She just didn't think he needed to know. Valir then asks if her work involves harming others. Loyar admits that it sometimes leads to that, but it's not their main purpose. Finally, she decides to fully explain. The begging is a cover. The Rotary Club members disguise themselves as beggars to gather information for the Gradium Thieves Guild. Loyar then reveals that she didn't intend for him to be deeply involved in this line of work, and urges him to forget about the club once he's in the temple. The next day, Daiben accompanies Valir to the Gradium Administrative Office to make an identification card. The process is easier than Valir expected, thanks to Daiben bribing the staff. From there, they head to the temple's admissions office. As they pass through the gates, they see a crowd of wealthy people vying for a spot for their children at this elite school. They enter the consultation office where Valir knows talent testing takes place, as he's heard that a discovery of talent could allow him to study for free. Many others are there waiting to be tested. Finally, it's Valir and Dibon's turn. They're number 86. However, once inside, they realize they're actually in the admissions application office. Valier tells the clerk he wants to pay just for the first semester, but she refuses, explaining that students have tried borrowing money for the first semester only to drop out, so partial payments are no longer allowed. Accepting this setback, Valir turns to leave, but Dibon urges the clerk to test Valir's talent, suggesting he might possess extraordinary abilities. He even offers to pay for the test, but the clerk assures them it's free and agrees to conduct it. She brings out a scanner and instructs Valir to place his hand on it. He hesitates. Gathering his nerve, he places his hand on the scanner. To everyone's surprise, the scanner malfunctions, baffling the clerk, as she insists it was working fine moments ago. She leaves to retrieve another scanner. Meanwhile, Valir is puzzled by the failure, wondering if it's a sign or something else. Dibon, however, is thrilled, assuming the malfunction means the scanner has detected some exceptional talent in Valir. Soon after, the clerk returns with a second scanner, which she's tested beforehand. She asks Valir to place his hand on it again. Once more, the results surprise her. She explains that the scanner is displaying an aptitude, essentially a lesser form of talent. Those with aptitude aren't necessarily prodigies, but they show potential to become above average in a given area over time. However, she adds that having aptitude alone isn't enough for temple admission. It's usually used just to reassure parents of their children's abilities. Valier feels a wave of disappointment at this. Then suddenly the clerk pauses, astonished, and reveals that Valir appears to have an aptitude for every skill known in the world. According to the scanner's results, Valir supposedly possesses the unique ability to wield both divine power and dark magic simultaneously, a feat unheard of in the Empire's history. Even Valir is taken aback, unable to grasp how this could be possible, especially since it wasn't exactly what he was aiming for. Meanwhile, Dibon is overjoyed, thrilled that Valir has turned out to be exceptional. They return to Loyar and relay everything. She too is stunned, but she gives Valir a congratulatory thumbs up. Valier, however, privately wonders if the circumstances are just adjusting to fit him into the novel's narrative. He understands that the novel couldn't predict what talent he might choose with his achievement points, which could be anything from close-range combat skills like swordsmanship or spear mastery to magic or archery. In fact, Valir knows it doesn't even have to be combat-related, as he can unlock any skill he wants if he has enough points. Dibon, noticing Valir's subdued reaction, finds it odd. Valir pretends to be pleased, pointing out that at least the club won't need to pay his tuition. Dibon, feeling proud, believes it's thanks to him that Valir's aptitudes were detected. He's convinced that if he hadn't insisted they stay, the lady would never have discovered this incredible result. Valir initially plans to wait until the next semester before becoming involved in the main storyline. But the way things are going, it seems inevitable that he will end up in the royal class. This prestigious class at the temple is reserved for the best and brightest students, the elite of the elite, who receive scholarships for the entire program. Students in the royal class live in a luxurious dormitory, receive ample allowances, and have the privilege of attending any lectures, even those meant for upperclassmen. These students are considered the top prodigies of the Empire, their skills and talents proven beyond a doubt. Despite this, Valir wants to spend at least one semester as a regular student, but to his surprise, he is placed in Class A, a class known for its arrogance and pride. He can't fathom how he ends up there, especially considering he has nothing to show them yet. Alaris, noticing Valir's moodiness, asks what is bothering him. Valier confides in her that he is uneasy about the inevitable clash between Class A and Ludwig, the main character of the novel. Ludwig, a transfer student, will end up fighting the arrogant students of Class A, teaching them a lesson in humility, and he doesn't want to be caught in that mess. However, Valir is thankful that, at the very least, his unlimited aptitude will likely keep expectations low for him. He hopes that the others won't expect too much from him. Alaris reassures him that everything will be fine, offering him some comfort despite his worries. Valier already imagines what life in Class A will be like for him, and he knows that he needs more than just aptitude to survive there. The class is filled with talented and arrogant students, and he doesn't want to be caught off guard. Alaris reassures him, promising that they will help him in any way they can, especially since he will have the privilege of leaving the temple whenever he wants. Despite her assurances, Valir can't shake the feeling that there is more to Alaris's eagerness to send him to the temple. He suddenly questions her, asking why she seems so eager for him to be around humans, especially when he knows Sarkagir might be right. He could grow stronger there. Alaris explains that her main reason for encouraging him to attend the temple is so he can get used to being around humans. Spending time there will help him understand their ways, which will be crucial for his future. Though Valir accepts this reasoning, he still wonders if Alaris will regret it later. Alaris then prepares some clothes for him to wear at the temple and gives him a sparkling magical necklace. Valier is surprised by the gift, and she reminds him that she specializes in flame magic. She tells him the story of the 7 vampire clans, each named after a knight, and how the clans of the sun and the moon were lost over time, including their magic. The remaining 5 clans, each representing an element, survived, and their powers have been passed down through generations. The necklace, Alaris reveals, is the heirloom of her clan, Flamma Martis, the symbol of the Flame Clan's head. Valier guesses that Alaris must be the head of the Flame Clan, and he wonders why she is giving him such a precious heirloom. Alaris explains that the necklace will allow him to cast fire spells using his mana. She asks him to try it out. Valier, confident in his abilities, tries it, but the flame he produces is weak. He questions Alaris about why the spell is so weak, and she explains that the necklace channels stronger flames when used to harm others. She primarily gave it to him for protection, although she hopes he won't need to use it at all. Valier understands then that Alaris is worried about him, yet she doesn't want him to cause harm to anyone. With this in mind, Valier makes a vow to himself. He will never use the necklace for offensive purposes until he graduates. Later, Loyar visits Valier and gives him some money for his allowance at the temple. She explains that it's the only thing she can offer since he helped her avoid paying his tuition fee. She also knows that Alaris and Sarkagar have already given him gifts, so she doesn't want to be left out. Valier thanks her, expecting her to leave so he can rest. However, she continues to advise and warn him about various things. Eventually, Valier politely sends her out of his room so he can finally have some peace. As he settles down, Valier suddenly remembers something. The novel he had written, his attempt at a slice-of-life story, was meant to be lighthearted, a break from the dark, grim endings that his readers often criticized him for. He had wanted to create something cheerful, but he quickly realized he didn't have the skill to keep a happy story going. Without enough incidents or plot twists, the story's cheerfulness started to fade, and the novel lost its initial spark. Valier tries to recall the details of how the story progressed, but his memory is fuzzy, especially toward the end. He strains his mind and finally remembers that, midway through the novel, a gate to another world opened. Monsters began pouring into their world, putting everything at risk of total annihilation. Valier feels disappointed by this turn of events. Valier is uncertain about what to do next. Should he run away, hide, and just wait for the story's ending to unfold? He considers this option briefly, but then remembers that Alaris and Loyar don't deserve to suffer because of his mistakes. With this in mind, he resolves to face the consequences head-on. Determined to make things right, he decides to go to the temple to become stronger and earn achievement points. He hopes that by doing so, he will either be able to rewrite the incident involving the gate, or at the very least, confront the monsters himself. If the world is heading toward its end, he will do whatever it takes to stop it. Valier eventually returns to the temple, where he and the other royal class students are informed to head to the dormitory by 1 p.m. He walks toward the dormitory and is immediately stunned by the size of the building. He can't help but wonder how much money must have gone into constructing it. Inside, it's even more impressive, spacious and elegant to the point that Valier doubts he'll even be able to find his room among the vastness. As he's looking around, a girl calls out to him. Turning around, Valier sees her offering a handshake, which he reciprocates. She introduces herself as Ceres Van Owen, the student president of the royal class. After looking at his student verification card, she offers to help him locate his room. She notices that his card has no last name, but addresses him by the name on the card anyway. Owen tells Valier that during the orientation program, she will explain everything he needs to know as a first-year student. She insists that he attend, and Valier thanks her before heading off to find his room. When Valier arrives at his room, he's surprised to find it locked, but he quickly recalls how to open it, remembering the details from the story. As the door creaks open, he is shocked by the immense size of the room. It feels more like a private suite than a student dormitory. He stands there, surprised, but soon notices a box placed on the ground. Curious, he opens it and finds a map of the temple, dormitory guidelines, some snacks, a book, and a pen inside. Valier, now with some free time, takes the opportunity to make a list of the characters he remembers from Class A and Class B. As he's jotting down names, he hears an announcement calling all students to gather in the central lobby. Though he wishes he had more time to recall additional names, he reluctantly puts the list aside and heads toward the lobby. On his way there, Valier looks up and notices a group of guys standing upstairs watching him. He wonders if they are upperclassmen of the royal class based on the way they're observing him, but he decides not to dwell on it. He continues on his way, eager to get to the lobby. Just as he's about to reach the entrance, a guy accidentally steps on his foot. Valier reacts angrily, but the guy immediately apologizes. Calming down, Valier listens as the guy introduces himself as Ludwig. Valier is surprised, realizing that things are starting to feel real now that he's met the main character of the novel. They walk to the central lobby together, where Owen instructs them to take their seats. Valier is unsure where to sit since he's the last numbered student in Class A. As he's about to settle in, some students from Class A notice him and start asking if he's the one with the rumored unlimited aptitude. They tease him, mocking his appearance, and wonder aloud why someone like him would be placed in Class A. Valier feels embarrassed but tries to brush it off. The introductions begin, starting with the students of Class A. The first person to introduce himself is Virtus, and Valier is taken aback. He remembers that in the novel, Virtus had hidden his identity, but here, he's openly introducing himself. Valier can't help but wonder why Virtus would act differently from what he recalled. After all the students in Class A introduce themselves, the focus shifts to Class B. When the first girl, Charlotte, stands up to introduce herself, Valier's concern deepens. He remembers that Charlotte shouldn't even be in Class B, and he begins to feel uneasy about the direction things are taking. Valier feels a growing unease as he watches Virtus and Charlotte, two members of the imperial family, stand among the royal class. Virtus, as the eldest son of the emperor, has the potential to wield tremendous power. If he graduates from the royal class with excellent grades, it will solidify his authority and influence, granting him an untouchable position in the empire. The weight of this achievement would not only come from his royal blood but from his proven skills, making him a formidable figure. Valier, however, is disturbed by Virtus's early appearance in the royal class. This is not how the plot was supposed to unfold. In his novel, Virtus was meant to stay in the background, quietly building his power before revealing himself. The fact that he has made himself known so soon changes everything. Virtus is supposed to be the hidden villain, operating in the shadows, but instead, he's stepping into the light, signaling his ambition from the very beginning. Charlotte's presence in the same class only adds to the confusion. She was never supposed to be in the royal class, let alone share it with her brother. This deviation from the plot unsettles Valier even more. He wonders if something he did, perhaps surviving alongside the princess, caused this shift. The timeline seems to have been altered in ways he can't fully grasp. Valier tries to make sense of it all. This was not the direction Valier envisioned for the character. But now, with Virtus already making his move, Valier knows things are shifting in ways he can't control. Charlotte, too, seems to be an anomaly. Her presence in the royal class is something Valier never planned, and it makes the situation even more complex. The unease that settled in him when he first saw her has only grown stronger, and now he feels like the story is no longer his to guide. Then, Owen states the rules of the temple. No discrimination will be tolerated, and all students should consider each other equal regardless of their levels. Failure to abide by these rules will attract punishment, which could include expulsion from the school. Afterward, Owen decides to read a letter from the imperial family, even though such letters are usually not allowed. She simply wants to make an exception. The letter serves as a warning to Virtus and Charlotte to be considerate of their positions, urging them not to compete harshly against each other, as doing so might deprive them of their right to the throne. When Valier hears the announcement, he hopes that it will prevent the prince and princess from fighting, at least for now. After the announcement, they are dismissed, but there's a guy among them named Erhi, who tries to acknowledge Virtus as the prince. However, Virtus refuses, mindful of the warning given in the letter. He doesn't want to make any moves that could attract unwanted attention or cause trouble for the imperial family. After discussing for a while with Erhi, Virtus leaves and heads toward a girl in Class A. She is the one who should have been in the first place, but Virtus was placed there instead. As a result, she is in second place. Virtus approaches her to apologize for taking her position, but the girl, whose name is Ellen, doesn't seem to care much about his apology. She leaves his presence without saying much. Valier, however, sees no reason why Virtus should even bother to apologize. It seems like a gesture meant to maintain his princely demeanor, but Valier finds it unnecessary. Ellen's full name is Ellen Artorius, and she is the sister of Regan Artorius, the legendary warrior who sacrificed himself to defeat the Demon King. Meanwhile, where Erhi, Virtus, and others are standing, Ludwig approaches them and introduces himself. Instead of returning the greeting, the Class A students look at him with disgust and hatred. This reaction confirms to Valier that everything is unfolding according to the novel's plot. Ludwig, the main character, has just become the target of Class A's disdain. When Ludwig sees that he is not welcomed by the Class A students, he decides to approach Valier, who he had already met earlier.